Amazing. Live on it. So we will see how this goes. It's our first time trying to stream into an event, which it said it will go into the group. So I'm not using the group Stream Connect. I'm just using the event. So hopefully everything goes where it's supposed to, and we'll see everyone here in just a minute.
I see a 1 second countdown. It looks like we are live in the group officially.
Sweet. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live. And if you're watching this right now and you hear me, you probably are watching the replay because we have 0 viewers so far. We'll give everyone a few minutes to get in here. If you're watching the replay, welcome as well. Leave any comments or questions on the video, and we will definitely check those out later as well. Today, we're going to be talking about the basics of SEO, some really simple starting points. We're going to try to take some questions. Hopefully we'll get some beginner questions here today. And I feel like, a lot of times people, maybe in our Facebook group, we see a lot of people who talk about SEO being technical or complicated. And I think maybe it's because people know that they can ask the complicated questions in our group. And so we do answer a lot of technical and complicated questions. I think one of my personal thoughts about like SEO being easy is that it's not easy. It's a complicated thing. I mean, there's many advanced algorithms that have been written by some of the most brilliant developers, being paid some of the top dollar in tech positions in the entire world. It's extremely competitive. Google's making billions of dollars on this technology. It's not going to be simple. But that being said, the overall concepts are not necessarily technical and difficult. It's actually quite intuitive. Dylan, are we still, is it showing live? Because
I see we're live in the group. We show 7 viewers currently.
Sweet. Yeah, if you're here, make sure to leave us a comment. We'll see if it's coming through. I don't know, maybe something's not coming through into Restream. Let's just see. Do you see comments there?
Yeah, Andrew just said, hey, been listening to your voices all day, binging the podcast. Super excited to keep learning.
Nice.
We're glad you're here.
What's your favorite episode so far?
Exactly.
Let's see. So if you're live in the Facebook group, make sure to leave any comments there. We will try to monitor that. Dylan, since you've got it up, why don't you monitor that for questions?
Totally.
And before we jump right into questions, let's... The one with Nina, awesome. That's a great episode. Yeah. I'm finally able to see the comments here. Yeah, if you haven't checked out our podcast, definitely check it out. fuelyourphotos.com/podcast, I think, or it's on any of the major platforms. We would love to have you listen in there. And if you have ideas for episodes, things that you want to hear us talk about, if you have guest ideas for us, we're definitely wanting to do more podcasting here in the coming months. So let us know your thoughts, and we will get you some more episodes coming soon. Sure. Dylan, let's go ahead and jump into just kind of a few of the basic underlying principles that are the core, the foundation of SEO. If you are just getting started and you're like, I don't even really understand this whole SEO thing, I'm not sure what people are talking about or what I have to do or where I can get started. Let's just kind of go through a few of the very basics. That sound good?
I like it.
I have a little bit of an outline we can go by here. And again, everyone, make sure you drop your questions in the chat and we will try to say this. Dylan, if you get the questions coming through in the chat, can you copy paste them into something so that we'll be able to see them? Because the Facebook comments seem to get really
nested.
Exactly. We can't get back to them. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because I want to show a couple of resources as we do this. Let's do screen share. And we'll go.
While you're doing that, hello, Jess. Hello, Sophia. Hello, Tanya. Good to see you all.
Glad to have you all here. Okay, so if you're just getting started, one of the best places you can go is actually some of Google's own resources. There's one that is called How Search Works. If you go to Google and type in How Search Works, you'll find this guide. You'll find a couple of other things as well. There's a really cool video that they have. But this guide to search is a really good way to start to understand how Google, the team at Google, the company is thinking about search, the web, indexing the world's content, and some of the technical aspects of how they do it, what their approach is like. There's a lot here that you can go over, and you notice that like each of these will kind of dig into even more information about each category. So to start off, the main concept that you need to understand is that for something to show up on Google, Google has to be able to find it, right? So there's this core concept of SEO that's discoverability, that's indexation. Indexation might sound like a big word if you haven't heard that before. It just means Google taking content and putting it into their database. The database is basically all of the information that they have about the world through web pages and through maps and user submitted content and all kinds of places that they're collecting information to their index, to their knowledge graph. They save it all so that whenever people come to their search engine and type in a query, which is another word for search term or question, then they can return some results. And the results might be web pages, but the results also might be other types of features. They might, if you search for restaurant, it might give you local business results. If you search for flights, it might give a Google Flights widget right there in the search. There are a lot of ways that Google can represent information back to you through search, but the first thing they have to do is discover it, crawl it, and save it to their index. So far, do we have any questions on discoverability? This is something that we don't really need to get into a whole lot here, because for the most part, on any modern web platforms, your website should be mostly discoverable by default. Now, there are some settings that you can check on pretty much every platform that will tell Google not to crawl your website. So you definitely want to check and make sure that kind of thing is not going on. If you have any questions, like if you're finding that you're not showing up in Google, maybe that's something that you would look at. But by default, that kind of stuff wouldn't be checked. That would be something that you would have had to do intentionally on pretty much every platform. And, if we want to go maybe one more step here, we could talk a little bit about Search Console, Google's tool for letting webmasters kind of see what's going on in Google search. Search Console will allow you to verify your property to show that you're the owner of a website. And then it will give you information about how that site is being displayed and found in Google. It will also allow you to submit a sitemap and to request specific pages on that property to be indexed, to be submitted to the index for them to crawl. If any of that sounds super complicated, don't worry about that right off the bat, but just know that that is a great place to start if you need to set up something to kind of figure out what Google sees on your site. Search Console is the place to go, and eventually you might want to get in there. Do we have any questions yet, Dylan?
Totally. Sophia has a question. Is there a big difference between local and total discoverability? Do you want to tackle that, or?
Why don't you go for it?
Cool. Awesome. So I would say that overall discoverability. So first, we want to make sure, is your page able to be accessed by Google, indexed by Google? And you can check that through indexation. In the past year or so, Google's been a little bit more picky about which pages they choose to index. And we've noticed on newer sites, sometimes we'll go into the indexation report and not all of their important content is indexed, like new blog posts that they've worked hard on just aren't even showing up in Google results. That's going to be affecting no matter where the searchers are searching from, those just are not going to show up. But overall discoverability for local and national, you can, in some situations, have a site that ranks quite well locally. So if the searcher is searching from very close proximity to where your site is located or that content is based on, you might show up well, but then you might not show up nationally. That's somewhat rare, I would say. For most blog content, it can happen, obviously, for like Google business results, your actual profile showing up in maps.
Right. I think that's the key thing here with this like specific question about discoverability and local is that you do need to be on Google Maps. You need to have a Google business profile. If you don't have that, you cannot show up on Maps. So I would say almost every photographer, there might be a few rare cases if you're doing like some sort of you're selling landscapes or something like that, where you may not have a local presence at all. But if you're trying to target any sort of search terms that use locations in the term, then you definitely want to have a Google business profile. And we could get into a little bit more there, especially if people have questions. But for the most part, with a Google Business Profile, you just want to set it up exactly like they guide you to set it up. Fill out every piece of the profile as accurately as possible. Make sure to represent a specific location. I know a lot of people try to, they don't want to like pin themselves to one location, so they'll like try to make a very big selection in Google Business Profile. I think that hurts more than it helps. I think what you want to do is focus on one location for your profile and know that the people who are searching locally to you are the ones who are going to probably see that anyway. If they're searching from out of state, they're probably not going to see your business profile unless they search for your brand. So it makes a lot of sense to only really target the people who are local to you, where you actually physically reside with your Google Business Profile, and really make that specific. I think that's a little tip that a lot of people get wrong in the beginning, but make sure that's set up. And if your site is then also indexable and easy for Google to find, then you'll be able to be found or show up in the organic results for local terms as well. But yeah, that's an important distinction there to make sure that you do have Google Business Profile.
Cool. We have 2 questions.
All right, what we got?
First part, can we get a definition on what indexing means?
Mm-hmm.
And that's simply, Google has that giant database of all of the pages on the internet that are eligible to show up in results that they've found and have thought are interesting and authoritative and trustworthy. And if you're included in that database, your page is indexed.
Yep.
And in Google Search Console, they have the indexation report under pages.
And that this page in How Search Works here in the organizing information gets into this a little bit more. They find information by crawling. Basically, they use robots. They use automated software to go out and go through every page or every document that they can find on the web. And then that bot, that software, is basically copying that information and putting it back into some sort of program that Google has run. There's an algorithm, there's a machine learning algorithm, there's like all kinds of things that they do to compress that information, but they're compressing and storing that into a database. And that database is Google's index. It's just basically, index is another word for database. And it's, just like an index of recipes, or think of it as a library. Google is basically trying to curate the world's library of information that can be found on the web, and their collection is the index. So whenever your site is being indexed, that means it's being saved into their library.
Awesome. And then the second question would be, if I am an elopement photographer serving a specific area that is not in the same location I live in, would that affect me in any way?
Yeah, it would.
How
does that affect, Dylan?
Yeah, so you want your business address that is used on your Google Business Profile and elsewhere on the internet to be aligned with the location that you're serving for best results. Obviously, that can't always happen. There are some places, like somebody might be serving a location like Yosemite where you cannot live and you cannot have a business, but you could still be primarily shooting there. In those rare cases, you just want to be as close as possible. But also keep in mind, if it's a pure destination, people are likely going to be looking for photography services from far away. So you might want to just keep that in mind, that if somebody's searching from outside of the country or outside of the state for the majority of your work, local SEO is not likely going to be the biggest driver of your traffic.
Right. See how when we do this, you can still see the screen here. Let's do that to make it a little bigger. When we do the search for Yosemite elopement photographer, for example, we're not getting a map as part of the results. So if you're not seeing a map as part of the results, then you have a better chance of ranking there when you're not necessarily located there. And it's going to really come down to on-page relevance, which actually we'll get to in just a few minutes. But I think it is important, if you are serving an area that, like if you're trying to be a Denver elopement photographer and you're not located in Denver, that's going to be really tricky. It's going to be hard to compete against the people who are located in Denver and offering that same service. If there's low competition, you might still have a chance, but for the most part, it's a tough strategy to try to use SEO and local terms whenever you're not based in a location. It can be done, and some people get away with it, especially with lots of domain authority, which is another topic we'll touch on just a little bit, but it's not necessarily the primary strategy we would suggest.
Cool.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, Tanya Davis asks, I live in I live outside of a metro area. Is it better to try to rank for the larger metro area or the smaller city 25 miles away?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, I would say typically it depends on where your business is at. Sometimes if your business is newer and your authority might be a little bit lower, I might recommend first ranking really well for that city outside of the metro area. And then later on, you can go to target that major metro once you've really built up backlinks and authority and a lot of content on your site. Uh, I've seen results with that where it's easy to rank in most outside areas, and you can do that in a matter of weeks or months, where it might take years to crack into the first page for the major metro area.
Yep. Let's actually use that to jump into sort of some of the next concepts that are in the basics of SEO. There's one other question here I wanted to get to really quick, just because it's a simple one. Is how do I know if Google's indexing my content? One really easy way to poke at this is to just go to your site and then erase everything before this part of your URL and just put in site : with no space after it, and search that in Google. And see if you get any results. If so, these are definitely indexed. This isn't necessarily an exhaustive list of everything Google has indexed. Search Console is the way to find that out. There is a report in Search Console that tells you which pages are indexed. It's probably the most accurate picture you're going to get. But this is a quick way to find out if your site's being indexed. If they're showing up here in Google, especially with the site search, then it is being indexed. And if anybody has a situation where they're not being indexed, let us know, because we can definitely, that falls into, basic SEO. We need to find out how to get it indexed, but there might be something weird going on or whatever. But usually if you have a site out there and it's public and you've put the URL anywhere online that Google can access, whether that be your Facebook profile or, you made a comment on somebody's website, or like anywhere where Google could discover this link, they probably indexed it, most likely. If the site wasn't completely low quality or irrelevant or a copy or something like that, then they probably did save it to the index. All right, let's actually talk a little bit about, let's see. I want to talk about this whole idea of starting with knowing your searcher. And we have a whole lesson that we do in our membership that talks about SEO avatars, knowing that this is sort of like that lesson talks about the photographers having different avatars. There's different ways to approach SEO, but also in our content course, we have a whole part about your message and your market, and you're figuring out essentially, what is it that I have to say? What is it that I have to contribute to the world? That's my message. And who is my market? Who do I want to say that to? Right. And so in the case of being a photographer, especially one who serves local clients, there's going to likely be a demand for photography services in your area. And the people who are likely to, you want that service, there's a great chance that they're going to go to Google. This is why SEO for photographers is actually such an important topic. It's something that is it works well for photographers because there is usually some demand for most types of photography services in most areas. Now, that being said, your question about the areas like the metro versus the area outside of the city, you have to kind of know, are there people who are outside of the city in the smaller suburb or the smaller city that search Google using the name of that city, or that search for the main metro but from that outside city? When you kind of get an idea of whether those people are out there, that can really help you to decide how you will write the content to help those people, right? Because that's the whole thing of SEO. If we had to really boil it down, it would be, you have to create content that serves searchers, that fulfills their needs, that solves their problems, that lets them accomplish the thing that they came to Google to accomplish. If you can do that and do that well for people who are actually searching on Google, then you have a very good chance of ranking. What other questions do we have coming in, Dylan?
Yeah, I think Tanya just mentioned that she's from Rock Hill, South Carolina, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm going there on Sunday to go kayaking.
Nice. I think that is an interesting question. I don't know anything about Rock Hill and how it associates with Charlotte, but in my metro area, there's only probably 2 or 3 of the many suburbs where people would actually do a Google search and mention that suburb name.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they're just going to say Portland. So yeah, that is really interesting. You would learn that through local knowledge. In very large metro areas, you might be able to do keyword research using SEO tools, and it would show you that difference. But yeah, you're
Tanya,
probably gonna have to
what
use
type of photography are you doing there in Rock Hill? I mean, Rock Hill is relative. I mean, it's pretty small. It is definitely, a place that people live outside of Charlotte, but at the same time, there's enough people there that for some types of photography, there may be some specific search for Rock Hill. I think that's something where you can do some keyword research and figure out, are there enough searches per month that are, Rock Hill specific for certain types. Okay, so for portrait photography, what I would do, in fact, you know what? Let's just jump straight to this. We wanted to make sure we cover some tools and tips that you can use for kind of doing some research yourself. Let's actually look at Keywords Everywhere. So Keywords Everywhere is a really affordable tool. Let's see, I'm still got my screen share going on, right? Let's. Oh, it doesn't do the. I can't get Keywords Everywhere to work on it.
You have to do like an actual desktop share, not
that's
browser.
What I did.
Okay.
Let's try it again just to see. Entire screen on this side. That might work.
Cool.
All right, there we go. So can you see Keywords Everywhere on there now?
So
Keywords Everywhere is a browser extension. If you just go to Google and type in Keywords Everywhere, you'll be able to just go to this and it'll kind of give you all the details. You can install it for Chrome or Firefox or pretty much any Chromium browser. The pricing, it's $12 now for 100,000 credits, which expire after 1 year. And you have to buy it up front. So it's just $12 one time and 100,000 credits. And when you do that, you have this browser extension that you can turn on, right? And what we will do here in this case to do a little bit of research about Rock Hill. This is not a way to do it exhaustive. Remember, this is the beginning, basics of SEO. But let's go to Google and let's search for like Rock Hill family photographer, something like that. Let's see. First of all, the one clue that we can do, I have a video on YouTube, by the way, that is all about intuitive keyword research using a Google search. I highly recommend that video if you are, the same thing we're doing right now. If you kind of want to know some questions, but you don't really want to get into advanced keyword research tools and pay really huge subscriptions and all that stuff, you can get a lot of information from a Google search. And one of the first things I'm going to do is observe if I type in Rock Hill family photographer, are the titles of the pages that Google returns using Rock Hill in the titles, or are they using Charlotte in the titles? So you can see here, Rock Hill, Rock Hill, Rock Hill, Fort Mill, Rock Hill. All of these are using Rock Hill in the title. That's a good clue that Google wants to show specific Rock Hill websites. Like I haven't seen Charlotte show up in any of these yet. So it seems like Google is really differentiating between Rock Hill and Charlotte. If we were to do this search and we were to see that pretty much every one of these titles had Charlotte in the main part of the title, then we would know, maybe it's not a great idea to try to optimize for Rock Hill. But let's actually go to, so this one, family photographer Rock Hill, they're using the exact keyword in their title. That sounds like they are at least doing some optimization. So we'll go to that page. It's an internal page. It's actually just a blog post of one family, it looks like. But we're going to actually use Keywords Everywhere and see if maybe they'll give us any information about this URL. Sometimes they won't. So in this case, it just gives us Rock Hill photography as a keyword. Let's actually go back. I did that one for the exact URL. I went to the wrong place. Let's go Keywords Everywhere and do the one for the domain and see if it gives us anything more. Some specific locations, especially for weddings, you might have like specific venues that are in Rock Hill. There's Rock Hill photography, Rock Hill photographers. This is saying that their estimated search traffic in the US is 0. That's pretty low, global 20. Can't really trust these numbers exactly. We can go back to Google and we can do something like Rock Hill family photographer. Now, what if we just erase family and type in, a space here and do like portrait? Is it going to give us any other suggestions? We can kind of just probe at Google here to see if there's any specific, say, newborn. Newborn Photography, Rock Hill, all of these are showing really low search volume. That being said, I still I kind of think that most likely you're going to want to target local traffic in Rock Hill. If you're going to go after Charlotte traffic, it's going to be much, much more competitive to start. And you might want to try going after really specific topics in Charlotte first. Like write some blog posts about maybe you would do family session locations in downtown Charlotte. That could rank for that type of term, no matter where you are located. So there's a lot of strategies you can use to still rank for traffic that comes from a bigger metro, even if your local optimization is for a specific city. Dylan, you have anything more to add to that?
I think that's pretty well covered it. I was looking up at the next question, or one of the next questions. It's somewhat related.
Okay, what we got?
First, Raphael just asked about guidance on how to use Search Console, and we no longer have a guide to Search Console on the blog. I think it became a little bit out of date with their UI changes. Do we have any other resources specifically for Search Console? I know we have the How to Track Your Google Rank via Search Console Performance Report.
In the membership, there's some stuff. I've just put some stuff in the new content course about Search Console and kind of like how to track pages, how to track keywords. So there's some stuff there. I don't think we have any other public facing information about Search Console. I will say, though, it's pretty well documented if you are just to do a search on Google or on YouTube for Search Console, especially in the performance report. Really, the main things you need to learn are how to use filters and to switch back and forth between the queries and the pages. If you can figure that out, then you can get a lot of information. You kind of have to poke around, and it might take a little bit of, you'll have to learn some things. We could do a whole call on Search Console one day. Maybe that's a good idea. Mm-hmm.
And then Sophia is asking, do landing pages for certain towns work well? And that way it uses the keywords in the title.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think like the examples we saw on this Rock Hill photographer query, most of the pages ranking for that were internal pages. And so that seems like a topic that you could create landing pages specifically for that location and specialty with. Smaller towns, landing pages work great. Larger towns, if the majority of the competition's using their homepage to rank, it might be a little bit more difficult unless you have a ton of authority.
Let's talk about home pages and why they might have an advantage. That sounds like a really good basics of SEO topic.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say homepage is one of the biggest advantages is that root domain is kind of what aggregates the majority of your link equity. So most of the backlinks to your website are typically going to be towards your homepage, unless you have a piece of content go extremely viral.
All right, so what's a backlink? Let's just be real simple here.
Totally. So anytime a website has a hyperlink from their website to yours, that is a backlink. Google needs to be able to see that backlink. They need to most likely have it not have a no, or it needs to be on a page that's indexable, and they should have that page indexed. They have something called no follow, which you probably, if you know about backlinks, you probably heard the term no follow. And that was something that they introduced to combat spam, where they would say that we don't have to trust this backlink if it has a no follow tag. They can still choose to honor that link, especially if it's a trusted source like Wikipedia or New York Times or something like that. But the basics are most photographers are going to want to create as many relevant backlinks as possible to their site from other sites that are in their topic, local to them, or have high authority.
Right. It just shows, it's like a vote of confidence that the other site's mentioning you as a photographer and then kind of citing you as a source. So in the case of photographers, a lot of times your backlinks are going to come from business directories and potentially your images getting credited. If you, let's say you did some headshots for someone, they put it on their website and then it says like headshot by, and then they put your business name right there and they link to your homepage. Most often for those sorts of credits, they're going to link just directly to your homepage. So that's kind of the first concept of homepage having more authority because it has more backlinks pointing to it. But then there's a second thing that I think is important, and it's that, remember, Google is indexing the world's information, right? Not just websites, but the information that they find through Google Business Profiles, through your social profiles, through other business directories, from places they see you around the web, anywhere that they can find information about your brand. They're going to use that to sort of build up some sort of knowledge base. It's a separate piece of the index called the knowledge graph, where they save information about entities, right? So people, places, and things. If you're a business, then you are an entity, and Google is saving some information about that entity that's separate from just the information that they have about your domain. So in the organic search results, a lot of times we're talking about domain specific factors when we talk about ranking. But whenever it comes to entity-based results, you often would use the home page as the way to represent an entity. So if you do a search for best photographers in Rock Hill, for example, Google might use information that they have from the business profiles and reviews and other kinds of places that they have information about all these photographers around the web to return a list of the most relevant photographers. And if the information that they have that is helping those photographers rank is not just from the website, then they might just kind of give all that credit and say, well, here's the homepage of that website. Here's where you would go to find information about that. So in general, for these sort of entity-based results, if you see a map pack, the little map result on the search, it's very likely that it's what I would call an entity-based result, and that the homepage is going to be more preferred by Google in that situation. Doesn't mean that you'll only see homepages ranking there. We do see people rank with internal pages, especially for smaller towns and cities. We can see that you can target secondary locations with these internal pages. It really kind of depends on the competition. My rule of thumb is if I go to Google and I search for a location plus specialty plus photographer, and the first 2 pages are all home pages, then I'm just not even going to really try with internal page. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that it's going to be much, much harder. If there's maybe half of the results in the first 2 pages that are internal pages, then I would say you probably have just as good of a chance ranking with that internal page in those situations.
Cool. All right. Max has a question. Is it possible for venue pages, or is it possible that venue pages rank better than photographer pages? I've built a few and I get more traffic to those than the photography specific pages.
Yep.
So yeah, we talk about this quite a bit in the course and in our group, that one of the main topics for both wedding and portrait shoots is either the location of the portrait shoot or the venue for the wedding. And we found that it can drive significantly more traffic in many situations to rank for those individual venues and for a roundup of the venues for an area as well. So yeah, those topics generally seem to have more search volume than people searching specifically for a certain specialty and location of photographer.
Yep, they can definitely rank very well. It's all going to depend, like Dylan says, just depending on the location. Some cities will have significantly more people searching for a photographer in a certain specialty, and maybe the venues just aren't that popular. Some venues get 10 times the amount of search that any photography specialty, even wedding photographers, get in that city. So a lot of it depends on that. Also, you may find that the venues are a little bit easier to rank for in some places, especially if no one's made great content about a venue and you can do something that's even just pretty decent. You can often rank for those. I have found that a lot of venue owners are not doing SEO in the way that photographers are doing SEO. And so it may be that your competition for the photography pages is significantly higher than the competition for those venue pages in a lot of markets. I would say that's changing over time. In my opinion, at least, I'm seeing it be more and more difficult to rank for venues for beginner photographers who are just getting started, because there's so many established photographers that are already targeting those terms now. But that doesn't mean we don't see things get mixed up all the time. Like we'll see just somebody come in, make a blog post from a wedding that just mentions the venue in the title and still rank on the first page above established photographers. A lot of stuff can happen like that. There's a lot of different factors that go into why Google is ranking something on the first page. So don't like take our word for it. Like never try this. It's just that, you can see a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about how Google's kind of keeping people guessing. They actually have patents where they've built multiple systems to just kind of like mess up the results a little bit so people can't just game the system.
Right. If SEO was so easy that we could give you like a proven formula that's going to work 100% of the time, then everyone would do it and no one would be able to rank anymore, right?
Right.
Like what would the differentiators be at that point? So it's quite
Yeah.
complex as far as what exactly they do to rank and how they mix it up. And each algorithm update can mix things up as well. In this thing that I was showing earlier with the how search works, we'll go back to a screen share for a minute. There's actually a video in there. Let's see, screen share on, and let's see if it's on. I think it's on this overview page of how search works, and it's actually an hour-long, like documentary style video. It's a really fun watch. I highly recommend it, especially for beginners in SEO. But I found it really enjoyable as someone who just works with SEO. But they talk about algorithm updates and how they fine-tune things and what they're trying to accomplish and the type of spam that they're trying to combat and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's way bigger than you would think. And this is one way that you can kind of dig into that and get some more insights there.
The scale is nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Kate just says hi from Australia. She just woke up and jumped on.
What's up? Glad to have you here. Okay, so another resource for people who are getting started. Whenever I searched for how search works to try to pull up this guide, it also gave me this. It's actually how Google search works, an in-depth guide to how Google search works. And this one, it says, looking for something less technical, check out our how search works. That's the one I showed you first, right? But this one really gets into some fun topics. You can dig into this if you're trying to learn SEO. But this particular page, creating helpful, reliable, people-first content. I wish every person would read this one page. It's not extremely long. You could read it in less than an hour. And it just gives you some really simple, practical tips, like this self-assessment right here. It basically gives you these questions. And by the way, if you are new and you haven't been around for some of the other stuff we've been talking about in the past few videos, use ChatGPT and ask it these questions about your content. Like, that's something that you can actually do pretty easily now with AI. But just asking yourself, does the content provide original information, reporting, research, or analysis? Does it provide a substantial, complete, or comprehensive description of the topic? Is it insightful? Like, all of these things, we want to avoid exaggerating or being shocking. We want to be descriptive, helpful. It's a summary of the content. Like, these are all really, really practical tips that it's like, if you do this, your content is going to be very, very high on the candidate list for ranking. I think that's extremely important. And I really love the way they summarize the questions, and they talk about expertise. They talk about quality raters, a lot of information here that's kind of like fundamental to SEO, but in an approachable way, I think. So check that out as a resource.
Awesome. What is the new EEAT?
Yeah,
it used to be EAT.
Yeah, it used to be experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. No, expertise. Now it's experience, expertise.
Exactly.
Pretty sure.
Which is really cool. I mean, I don't think this has. I mean, it has some relevancy to photography space, but it's pretty much saying if you ever do a review, they want to see your actual experience. It could also maybe like a venue guide. They want to see that you've actually been to the venue or anything like that.
Right. I think this is another key fundamental part of SEO is the EEAT now. Just this idea that if you're going to write content, then you either need to be an expert or you need to have firsthand experience. That's something I think is important for beginners to realize, is that you don't necessarily have to be an established expert. You can show experience, demonstrate experience. And especially as a photographer, you've got a camera that you can like prove it, right? Document your learning, document the way that you've found this knowledge, and then put it on your blog, put it on your website. Like, that's a cool thing that photographers can do.
And I think the nuance from this section is not only do you need to have that experience or authoritativeness or expertise, but you have to show your work, like actually show who's writing the post and tell Google and users why you have authority on that topic.
Yep.
Max has a question.
Okay.
Curious, what do you guys think makes the biggest difference as far as click-through rate? Do you want to tackle that?
Let's think about that.
I have a quick answer.
All right. What's your quick answer?
I would say how closely the content is shown to be relevant to the term. mixed also with like how engaging the title is. But if I'm searching for a photographer in Portland, I want to see that in the title. I want to see that the website is about photography in Portland. Do that in an interesting way, and I'm more likely to click. If I search for Portland photographer and I get this list of videographers in Vancouver, Washington, I don't think that's really relevant, and I'm not going to click that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think every person comes into the search with some slight difference in exactly what they're looking for. Like notice how here affordable is highlighted. For the people who were thinking that they wanted a budget-friendly photographer and they come to this list, they're going to see that word affordable and it's definitely going to stand out to them. Whereas there might be someone else who came to the search and they see affordable and they're like, no, that's not all what I'm looking for. I want highest end, most high quality, expensive photographer. You know, there's going to be less people searching Google that are looking for that, but it does have a lot to do with what it is exactly that you had that was sort of in the subconscious part of your search. That I think if you can really get inside someone's head, the person who's most likely to be searching for you are the one that you want to reach when they're searching for you. And you can answer the subtle things that they didn't include in that query in the title and the meta description. I think you'll increase click-through rate drastically. I've done it with a lot of my articles. I will that's my thinking. I'll think, what do they really want to find here? Like I did this one for like how much do YouTubers make? And I in the title and in the meta description, I was talking about a YouTube income calculator, right? I knew that they were actually some people were trying to calculate how much they would make per view or something like that. So I put that in the meta description. And I've seen, I don't know if it was that one, but I've seen some cases. Another really interesting example, we did this one that was date night ideas for pregnant couples. That was the main term I was targeting. It ended up ranking for thousands of related terms. But the one weird intent that I wasn't expecting was that there were a lot of parents who this was their first child and they wanted to do something special as a last date with just the two of them before the baby got there. That was like a really prevalent intent. You could tell by a lot of the secondary inquiries or queries, like the things that people didn't search exactly like I targeted, but they kind of implied that's what they were doing. Well, if I then know that that's a huge part of the audience, I can come back to my title and say something like, special dates for your, special last date before baby arrives. That might be a better title for that if I know that that's the primary intent. So it's really more about sort of this art of knowing the searcher, knowing what they probably actually mean, knowing what the specific slice of searchers that you're trying to target actually means, and then writing something compelling to that specific intent. That's what I would do.
Right. Totally agree.
Let's see here.
Awesome. And feel free to keep those questions coming. We'll kind of do a mix of Q&A and get through this content that we have pre-outlined.
Yeah, I just have a few other things outlined. Let's talk about, we've got trust and authority, which we've alluded to a few times, but let's do a little bit more about that. Dylan, you want to kind of just jump in and talk a little bit about what authority looks like and how you might measure it and how Google might use that and why they need to trust the results in general?
Totally. So yeah, authority forever in Google search results has been measured by backlinks. They've used backlinks as this like tool to see if it's like crowdsourcing if a website is interesting, trustworthy, authoritative, etc. So the number of backlinks from already trusted sites can improve your overall authority. They created that. They called it PageRank. It was one of the first initial patents that started Google search. And then I think ever since then, they've been trying to get away from using backlinks, but they just work because a really high quality backlink from a trusted source is by definition going to be hard to get.
It's hard to fake.
Right? It's really hard to fake. And try to get a New York Times backlink. It'll take you years and you'll have to spend thousands of dollars on producing really good content and becoming really good at something. I don't know.
There's this whole thing of reputation, right? Like someone who already has an established reputation isn't going to risk their reputation by vouching for someone who they don't know or who might damage their recommendation or their reputation. If I make a recommendation to, let's say a photographer asks me about like, who should I hire to remake my website? You'll find out that we don't make a lot of recommendations in that space. And it's because we would need to really vet those people, make sure that we get feedback from people who have used them. We don't want to make a recommendation to stake our reputation on that, and then that person really do a bad job for clients. And so it's very hard to get that sort of recommendation from us, because we would really want to make sure that the people who trust us already, whenever we give them a recommendation, we know that they put some judgment on the trust that they have with us based on whether that recommendation works out. Google does the same thing. Their search results are their baby, right? That's their recommendation list that they're giving out. Whenever you come and you make a query into Google, you are saying, hey, Google, I know that you have all that information about the internet out there, and I trust you to give me the best information. Let's see what you got. And they give you back the results. And there's some inherent trust that the results that they give you are going to be reputable, that they're going to be trustworthy, that it's worth spending your time to click that link because it's probably going to be what you wanted it to be. And so this idea of like Google has some sites that they're going to inherently trust because of the reputation that they have over time, and that whenever those sites vouch for another site, they're transferring some of that trust. So Google's like, okay, we trusted this one at a 90, and they just said that this photographer over here, who we only trusted at like a 15, was like 15% trust, if that was a thing, right? This person that we trust 90 says that they trust them, so we're going to move that 15 up to a 20 now. Like, that's a good vouch right there. That's kind of how the whole PageRank thing works. Sort of, although now it's like significantly more complicated than that. And that thing we were just looking at with like EEAT, that's one of their like goals to get away from backlinks is, what can we index about authors? What can we save about a company, a person that is writing the content? What kind of content have they written in other places around the web? What do we know about their credentials? What do we know about their education? What do we know about their just in general, their experience in this field? In a domain, does it cover a lot of topics that we would expect to be covered by an expert on this? A lot of those things go into authority, right? It's just that I think what Google has found is that as a as a proxy for all of that, they could just use domain authority. Their right. Formula that they came up with for trusting backlinks basically gives them the same list as if they put all this effort into figuring out who they can trust, because of exactly what Dylan said, it's hard to get links from reputable sites. So
yeah, it's super interesting. There are studies of using their PageRank algorithm on like in the natural world, and it just like that show of trust works for like ant colonies and like how they respect a certain ant or something like them. It's pretty cool.
What do photographers do if they want to make their site more authoritative?
Totally. So, I mean, first you need to start getting backlinks from local companies, other companies in the market, photographer directories, showing up in a lot of the sites that Google's going to expect a photographer to show up on. Outside of that, maybe you have an art degree. Maybe you should actually mention that in your about page. Or maybe you've written articles for publications. You should mention that. Or you've worked on big jobs for big companies. You should mention that.
Yeah.
Maybe you've taught somewhere. You should mention that. Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of people need
why your clients would trust you and prove it. Show that on your website.
Exactly. Max had a question on you back, I think, to your click-through rate topic. Did changing the page with good ranking end up helping?
I don't think I actually made that change on that article. I was saying that theoretically I could have. I have done it though on other articles, and it's tricky. Sometimes it's like, yes, bullseye. You like make that change and suddenly you've got the right people clicking. It gets more click-through rate. I've had articles that are ranking position 5 getting 35% of the clicks, which is nuts. You don't usually see that. It is possible for sure. However, one thing you have to note is that if there is a clear parent topic, if that one I was talking about, like most people, like 90% of the people search date night ideas for pregnant couples. Let's just say that was the term. And I change it so it's not targeting that anymore. It's possible that I lose some of the ranking for that exact part of the topic, depending on how specific and far away from that I get. It gets really nuanced, and I don't want to get into that because that's not the basics of SEO. the basics would be just try to use your intuition on what it is that you think people are searching. Try to do a little bit of keyword research. Using keywords everywhere is a great way to do that kind of keyword research and see what people are actually searching. And then you do want to base some of your optimization on that, because we want to make sure that we're giving them back what they searched. But also, again, use your expertise, use your intuition to say, okay, I know you're saying those words, but I know that what you actually want is this, and make sure that you give them that. And then you can kind of experiment with which one does better as far as click-through rate.
Yeah. I would say it's typically easier to say increase your click-through rate by 20% than it is to get 20% more impressions on a term or see 20% more clicks just from a ranking improvement.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We talked about authority. We talked about indexation. We talked some about relevance. Let's show a couple of other tools. And let's just see what questions we have coming in. Guys, keep the questions coming. If you have any sort of question, basic as you want, anything, we will definitely answer those. And we had a couple of questions from the event. I want to make sure we cover those. I'll pull that up in just a second. First,
Awesome.
let's show detailed SEO and let's show headings map. Those are two of my favorite tools for SEO. Now, one thing before we get into any of that, actually, I'm going to show, well, we'll do it at the same time. Let's do a screen share again. Whoops. Turn it back on and go with this screen. We're actually going to use this Caldera for this example. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that having a fundamentally excellent template, one that really incorporates the ideas of, what is it that searchers want to find, and making sure that you're making that really easy and simple and straightforward, that will have a huge impact on your ranking. So I think that, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems that I see on photography websites is that they use templates that are meant to be pretty to photographers. They're meant to be, they make you feel good about your brand, but they don't practically answer the questions of searchers. So if you want to rank in Google, you really need to target searchers. If you want to have a site that primarily gets traffic from search, from Pinterest and Instagram and referrals, and you're going to do a YouTube channel that drives like your audience there, you're going to have a TikTok that's constantly sending people, maybe that's not the thing for you, right? Maybe you want the pretty, trendy, you've got to know your site, your vibe, your marketing strategy. But when it comes to search specifically, I cannot overstate this. It matters that you have a template that is primarily targeting the people who go to Google to find a service that is, already has demand, that they are trying to book someone. They want to hire someone. They don't need to know everything. They just need to know the details that they came to find. All right. Looking at these tools. So we already talked about keywords everywhere a little bit. So detailed is a simple one. Basically, it's just detailed SEO, and it's free, and it gives you some simple things: the title, the meta description, the URL, the canonical address. Well, a lot of times we have people asking, how do I know my canonical? This is a really simple way to find it. You probably don't need to know that for many things, but if you ever are trying to figure that out, this is one of those things where you can easily find it. Whether the page is indexable, right here, it's got the robots tags index. If this said no index, we would know that's a problem.
And I think it turns red if it's no index.
Exactly. And then we can look at headings right in here. We can look at the links on the page. We can look at the images, schema, social. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. I generally only use this as a really quick way to see the title and the meta description and the canonical and the index tag. Those are the things I'm looking at with detailed. I mean, you could do it by clicking inspect and going into the head, and this is where it gets technical, right? You're figuring out what the HTML says. That's why you can use something like this that just tells you what the title of a page is. That can be really helpful, especially when you're doing competitive analysis as well. And you want to see how are my competitors titling their pages? That can be a good way. Now, while we're on that, really quick, I just want to show you one more tool. This wasn't on my list, but let's do SERP Simulator.
Ooh, I love this one.
Yeah, Mangools has this free tool for writing better titles and meta descriptions. And you can put in a search term over here, like Portland wedding photographer. And when you search that, it will actually bring in the results from Portland wedding photographer. Some of it doesn't really bring in perfectly, but the idea is that now I can start writing a title, and it will show me what that looks like. Let's say I was in position 4 and I am really thinking about click-through rates. Like, how does it compare to the things that are around me? You can also type in the description here. And you can do a mobile preview if you want. So this is a really nice tool. I like to do this when I'm writing titles, and I'll try to do like 5, 10, 15 variations and then put them all in a separate document and then come back to them and sort of pick the one I like the most. But anyway, that's a quick little tool. And then we'll go back to here. And in fact, let's look at, we'll look at this one. So headings map. It's another tool that you can easily get an idea of what the headings are. Why are these H1s?
I don't think that was supposed to be an H1.
Put that on the notes to fix right now.
I'm going to change that right now.
But let's go to actually I have my site's actually built specifically for this, like showing the headings. And no, that's not the one. It's the family demo, the starter family demo. So this one, this is how headings should look, an outline that shows the main topics of the page. So this is actually one of those things that a lot of photographers, when we show them about headings and how they're supposed to look, they're like, oh, that makes sense now. And I think it's a important thing, not because of some like magic SEO technical thing where like you put it in an HTML H1 tag and now it like gets more emphasis from Google. It's not like that. It's more like whenever Google can look at a particular piece on this page and they know exactly how it relates to the other content on the page, that helps whenever they're trying to assess their confidence that it's the right kind of content for a specific query. Because in this case, when I say things to do in Boulder for families, I know that that's a resource for Boulder family photographers on a page about Boulder family photography. By looking backwards in the list of headings, I can get more information. The Smith family by itself as an H1 on the page would just tell me there's something about the Smith family. But as an H3 that belongs to this H2 that belongs to this H1, I now know that the Smith family is part of a Boulder family portfolio that's part of a page about Boulder family photographer. So that's the idea behind headings, is that they're nested like this, so that if we can look and see just the H2s on this page, and they would all be part of the page about Boulder family photography, services, family session information, the process, the portfolio, pricing, resources, about me, frequently asked questions. Those are the main sections of the page. But then each of those can have subsections where like the process is inquire and book, session day, order products, photo delivery. And structuring your content like this, while it's not 100% necessary, and Google is good at figuring it out if you do it other ways, this lets Google know for sure. They can have a 100% confidence score in the way that this content is structured, that they know exactly what that's supposed to mean.
Yep. I like to insert a table of contents on a blog post that I'm writing. And that by design makes you really focus on that heading structure, because it shows like exactly how it's nested and what that looks like on the page.
Yep, exactly.
We did have a question from Kate. She says, what are your thoughts on not naming the niche in your homepage H1 and just having it say city photographer? Her homepage is currently on page 2 for Melbourne family photographer, and one of her internal pages, Melbourne personal branding, is on page 1. The term Melbourne photographer without a niche has twice the search volume, but also twice the difficulty as Melbourne family photographer.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's tricky.
Yeah. My quick thoughts are that in general, that the search term without any specialty, it's a wide range of people looking for random stuff. It might be people looking for commercial photographers. It might be people looking for headshots or events, or who knows. The actual both click-through rate to that and the actual conversion to business is going to be much lower, where our Melbourne family photographer is extremely targeted. If families are one of your main specialties, they are going to be so relevant for your site and your services. So not only are they going to have a higher chance of clicking through from the SERP, but they're going to have a much higher likelihood of actually converting to real clients.
Yep. I will say I have definitely had some consulting clients where I have recommended that strategy that you're talking about. It's not that it's never appropriate. Generally,
Yeah.
though, it's when I find that there's such little volume in general for a town that the only search terms, like earlier, we saw Rock Hill photographers was like the only thing that even showed volume. Maybe in that case, it makes sense to go after Rock Hill photographers and just try to capture everything you can, especially who was that was in that case, she was saying that, she's a portrait photographer, which is a little more general, right?
Yeah. Tanya Davis.
Yeah, Tanya. So like that makes sense that maybe if you're going after more general kinds of things, I know when I was ranking for Columbia SC photographers, the type of stuff I got from that, I got this like nonprofit event. I got apartments that I went in and did like their demo rooms and stuff. There was some stuff that I got from that, but it wasn't what I was, as far as I could tell, I wasn't normally getting my like wedding work from that. It made a lot more sense for me to target wedding photographer. I don't know. I don't think it's a bad idea. If you think that the internal page, like earlier we were talking about this, I'm not sure if you were here yet, Kate, but if you do the analysis and you say for Melbourne family photographers, 50% of these are internal pages, and you know that you could get an internal page ranking for that just as easily as the homepage, and you want to kind of really target families with an internal page and go really heavy on the on-page optimization, and you want, those cases, maybe you could do what you're talking about. I don't think it's a terrible strategy. I just think that exactly what Dylan said, you probably have more of an advantage using your homepage for the specialty. It's generally going to work better in most cases that we see.
Her follow-up is, if she's pivoting to a new niche, at which point do you flip the internal page and the homepage? So make branding or headshots the homepage, and then family photography an internal page.
Mm-hmm.
I think that so much of that comes down to your business, and personal branding for me is always, it's been a weird one to watch because it's kind of like a created specialty just in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're still waiting for the audience to really embrace those terms in search. It's starting to come around. I'm starting to see volume show up in different areas, but if 5 years ago nobody was using that term when they Googled. So
yeah, it's tricky. I don't know if there's a definitive answer to that. Like soon as possible, probably, if you're really trying to get the things switched and you don't want to rank for family anymore, or it's not that important to your business. Like if you're ranking on page 1 for Melbourne family photographer and you wanted to switch over to doing mostly personal branding, that would be a much more complicated scenario, right? Like, are you willing to lose the traffic that you're getting for families right now to move to something else? Then if you're willing to lose it, then go for it immediately. If you're not willing to lose it, then there's no real transition path, in my opinion. Like you can't redirect the homepage to the family page, right? Like you've got to make it, and it's got to become established. I would say if I were doing it and I was worried about it, probably my strategy would be create quite a few, maybe 5 to 10 pieces of blog content that are really specific to families, things to do with your family in Melbourne, best family session locations in Melbourne, family friendly restaurants in Melbourne. I would be anything like that. That's like families in Melbourne. I would make that sort of like silo of family content. Then I would switch to the internal page for family photographer, and I would make sure that all of those, I would wait for those family pages to get indexed and probably start showing up for some of those terms. And then I would make sure that each of those links to that new internal page with the anchor text Melbourne family photographer. That's about the best I think you could do. I don't know that there's any other strategy that's going to like let you be sure. And even that won't let you be sure. But I think that's kind of like hedging your bets.
I dig it.
All right, let's look at these couple of questions that we had here from the event, just so if they're watching the replay, they can get those answers. All right, so the first one says, does repeating the same keyword, example, area wedding photographer, in the title and description of each photo hurt your SEO in the same way using the keywords different blog post does? So basically, we've talked about that many times as far as the titles, and we've got a blog post about it and a lot of other information. But what about for the photos, for the file names, for the alt text? Should you use the same location name over and over? What do you think, Dylan?
I would say that the most likely scenario is that Google is just going to start disregarding that file name and alt text for image rankings. There is some theory, and I think I've seen on a few projects where like image, file name, and alt text might slightly affect web rankings, but um, I just I would disregard it almost completely. If the alt text of your images is what's like nuking your rankings for something, you're probably in a bad spot already. Like that shouldn't be affecting you.
I agree. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it. I would say I would, for file names, I'm generally going to do something that's pretty standard across the board. I might just do like client's last name, type of session, really generic. I wouldn't do the location necessarily. It might be like, Smith family session 001.jpg. Like that's still enough information to let Google know that this is like a family portrait session. And it's not something that's like going to compete with any specific keyword targeting or feel like it's spammy or anything like that. And then for alt text, we have a guide on alt text. I would just follow that. I think, write your alt text naturally. Don't repeat the same locations over and over. We've got a lot more tips in that article. Just go to the blog and we talk about alt text a lot there. And then let's see. So I was asking here. I had a page for my testimonials, but then decided to delete the page because I put them on different pages of my website. I've done the necessary steps to make sure that testimonials page is deleted, but it still looks like Google wants to crawl that page. What should I do? Is there any harm it can do SEO wise?
Yeah, so Google continues to try to crawl pages that they thought were relevant for a long time. That's not hurting anything as long as it's returning either a 404 or a redirect to something else, or a 407 that says it's been deleted, something like that. You're good to go.
Yeah, as long as if they're trying to crawl it, and eventually they'll stop trying to crawl it if it's gone. What Dylan's referring to there, I think I don't know about 407 actually. 410 is the one that is just literally gone. If you really want to get technical, you can't. This is the part where we were talking about SEO not needing to be technical. You don't need to do this. For the most part, if you leave it 404, then Google's going to eventually say 404 just means basically temporarily gone. It's move. What is the actual word for the 404 response? It's not found, I think. Yeah. And so it just, hang on. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
So when it's not found, then Google might say, well, maybe it's just missing right now. Maybe it's going to come back. We'll continue to crawl this URL and see if it comes back. But after a few attempts, from my understanding and practical experience, they will stop crawling. It'll stop showing in the reports. It'll just be gone. But if you gave it the 410 response code, then what you're telling it is, this is gone permanently. Please don't check back. It's not going to come back. But it can be kind of complicated to give a 410 response.
Yeah. An interesting note. I've seen pages that have ranked really well and have a lot of backlinks to them, have 404s for multiple years, and Google still tries to crawl them because they're like, this was an important page. And we're just waiting for the day that server comes back online or something.
One day they'll put it back.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we have more questions? Anybody who's here live have questions? If you have them, drop them in because we're going to be going here in a couple minutes.
Do you want to show off some of those cool new features in the member dashboard you made this week?
Yeah, let's look at that for just a second while we're seeing if we got any more questions. And I'll also put this up on the screen so you guys can see it in case you want to go to the course.
Nice.
Find out about it, the membership. Let's see, screen share back to here. Well, now it's kind of covering it up. Let's do, it'll be fine. We'll scroll it.
Nice.
So in our membership, we have a couple of key features. And at one point, we were just selling a course, right? And the course is something that we've developed over, man, what has it been, like 4 or 5 years now that we've been working on this course?
Yeah.
Dylan and I got together and we were both making SEO content for photographers. And we're like, why don't we just make like the definitive course? Like just anytime when someone wants to know about SEO, like there's one place they can go and they know they can get this course. And so we started it. It's gone through like 4 or 5 iterations now. And honestly, it's still evolving. Like since recently, we have a new kind of system for our course, and we plan on polishing it even more and really making it more and more dynamic over time. I know that I've been really getting into coding a little bit more since ChatGPT, and I'm really excited about some of the new features that are possible with the way that we're hosting the course and how we'll be able to personalize it for the future. But we have what I consider a course library at this point. Like it will become like all of the things that we have, we've got maybe 2 or 3 more courses in the back of our minds. One about link building, an AI course that's a way to like self-audit your website with AI. I've already started working on that one. Like there's several more things that we will continue to make over time, and they will be able to, all of that's going to be included in the membership forever. But we have our flagship courses now, or the main SEO course. You can go in here and there's, all of the main lessons. We really tried to make these assignment based, where it's like you go through and when you've completed it, and you can click complete, and it will let you track your progress through sort of the fundamentals, the foundations of SEO. The content course, I am so excited about this. This is something we started developing the content course last year in August. So it's almost been a year now. We had 5 rounds of the workshop, I think, something like that, where we did it live 1 month, a workshop
intensive,
where each person got a one-on-one call every week and a group call once per week. And we were really kind of refining this process. Like, how do we help people go from, I don't know what to write, to I've got a post that is driving traffic, targeted traffic to my website. And there's a process. And so we've basically outlined that here. And now you can do it on your own pace. So you can go in and get a little preview of this. I don't want to scroll it too much because people just screenshot it. But the whole idea is you can go in and do these lessons. And then by the way, there's a Notion template that's like our whole way of organizing content and deciding what to write. And you can even do the research right in there with our blogging templates built into the Notion template. It's really cool. But the idea is that you could take that now and you could come into office hours, which is another key feature of our membership now, where you can ask anything. But if you were to do the content course, you could essentially do one lesson and then come to the office hours for that week and let us see what you've done. And we'll give you feedback. We'll talk you through anything that you need or anything that's blocking you. And then you go back and finish it off, do the next lesson, come back the next week, ask questions in office hours. Right now we have look, this is how many office hours we have scheduled. I just scheduled July and August for my calls. Dylan will probably throw in
jump in and do that too.
He'll throw in a few as well. There's a lot of opportunities if you want to. We have maybe like 5 or 6 people who come to most calls right now, and they're like really, intensively working on their websites, and just the feedback loop there, being able to just say, hey, here's something you should do today. They go do it. And then the next day they're back and they're like, I did this. Is this right? And we just keep working on it that way. These people are really starting to see results, and I love watching that progress. So that's available there. And then our community it's like a Facebook group sort of, but it's like a mixture of a Facebook group and a forum. It's really nice to be able to know, if you ask questions, Dylan and I are definitely going to see those and we'll be able to answer that. And then also we have these topics. So for example, WordPress, now we have the WordPress templates that we're offering and kind of answering questions about WordPress hosting and things like that. Keyword cannibalization. It's a topic that comes up a lot, and I wanted a centralized place to just put all the information, have a video that you can't find anywhere else that talks about cannibalization, how to clean it up, the whole flow chart. There's just so much in here, and everything that we make in the future is all going into here. If it's not on the public blog, then it'll definitely be in here, and this is sort of our new resource hub for everything. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you in the membership. If you want to check it out, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. We think it's a really affordable price, and that people are really loving it, especially when they get in there and show up to some of the office hours. So it's a great place, whether you're a beginner or you're advanced. There's something there. In office hours, sometimes we're sitting there talking about advanced strategies, and other times we're talking about the very, very basics of getting your site set up. So something for everyone there.
All right, we have a question. Sarah's asking, is the content course separate from the membership? They've been wanting to join for a while now, need some extra guidance and handholding. They've made it to the 11th to 15th spot for their area, but can't get past that.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's all in the membership. That's why we've structured it this way. And by the way, I know a lot of people don't like these recurring memberships and things like that. The idea here is, for the one price, you get a year's worth of access. That's probably enough if you're even remotely serious. Even if you have a really busy season and you need to stop for a few months and come out, you've got enough time to go through everything. If you went through everything in this whole membership, it's probably 2 to 3 months worth of work to implement, I would say. So over the course of 12 months, you've got plenty of time you can totally cancel and it's just a one-time payment, right? But we needed a place, a way to be able to say we're going to continue to show up for the people who want like feedback, they want coaching, they want for this type of access. What we're giving with the office hours, it can't be a one-time payment. We'd have to sell so many that it just doesn't make sense. So we need to like make it so if you want that access, like you said, you want extra hand holding. Literally, we had someone join last week and they got into the lessons and they were using a platform that's like really difficult. So they're like, I just don't know if I can do this. They got onto the calls and like completely changed things where it's like, oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I just gave them like one little bite-sized assignment, like go do this, come back and let me know. They did that. It's like they're rebuilding their site now and it's like almost done and it's looking great. So definitely, if you want that kind of handholding, it's available for you there. We're guaranteeing one call per month, but right now we're doing 3 per week. So like there's a lot of extra availability if you need it.
Totally. And the second year is only $250 a year.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
It's a pretty decent deal, I hope.
Yep. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions coming in there, do we?
I think that's everything.
Well, if you have more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments of this. Also, the Facebook group's open all the time. You can ask there. If you're a member, certainly you have the places in the membership to ask questions. And also on our blog, the free SEO guide or on the Fuel Your Photos website, it has a section at the end for Q&A. So if you have basic SEO questions, you can always drop them there. Let me just see where's that? I can't get to it from here, can I?
Yeah.
Oh, wrong one. So yeah, if you go here and scroll down to the bottom, you can ask questions here and we'll respond there as well. So any of those places, if you have more questions, feel free to leave them and we'll see you on the next one.
Awesome.